All right, it's about that time. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome. I'm Amanda Weaver, if we haven't met yet. Happy Friday. It's Instructor Insights here today. And, I not sure, you may or may not know, a little over 2 weeks ago, one of my colleagues, another instructor here, Chris Norris, presented at Masterclass during Elite Training Days in Chicago. His presentation was more than a confession, and he really discussed redefining success through effective evaluation during this time. And I thought it was a pretty important topic. And I also thought I'd take advantage of my time here today to just kind of share some insights for those of you who didn't necessarily make it to Masterclass, and also add in my 2 cents on the topic of really just measuring interview success, which, by the way, I can tell you is truly an area that often faces the trap of outcome bias, if you will. And when I think about measuring interview success, it really should go just beyond that final admission, the confession, or even the recovery. I find that measuring interview success should really focus on the process. And that was a lot of what Chris talked about in his presentation at Masterclass. Now, I mentioned outcome bias. And as we all know, an outcome bias is, where we're judging the quality of a decision or even a process solely by the end results. I'd start here with you all. Imagine a scenario. And unfortunately, this is an all too well-known scenario, but imagine a scenario where an interviewer pressures someone into a confession that later doesn't hold up due to some sort of legal or ethical challenges. Now, if we judge that interview was a success simply because we got a confession, we're ultimately limiting the assessment's true accuracy in the end. And really, when we think about defining success, we really should be considering what information was obtained and whether it was truly done in the right way. Now, when determining evaluation benchmarks, it's important to identify areas that truly do focus on the process and help eliminate that outcome bias. Now, as we all know, a successful interview hinges on respecting interviewee autonomy and emphasizing personal choice, where it's their choice whether or not to participate. Now, the idea in this process is to be able to open up communication pathways to gather information that's of evidential value or significance, or intelligence value or significance. Here, we also want to think about considering the substance, if you will, of the information that's gathered. This focus really here should include whether each topic was thoroughly explored and whether the information that was ultimately obtained was verifiable and it was relevant. Here, we also want to consider the interviewer's, ability to keep an open mind and refrain from bias. I would also add into all that the quality, considering the quality of the evidence that supports the information that was ultimately obtained. For example, the written or recorded statement. Next, a focus area to consider is really focusing in on the process of obtaining that information. Now, I will tell you, this does require a meaningful approach here, but I think about building effective rapport, structuring questions appropriately, the ability to challenge. I would add in there no expression of judgment, disapproval, or even disbelief in this process. The ability to identify gaps in information, ability also to adaptively manage any sort of resistance that comes about. And the last one within all that, having an inherent flexibility in methods and approaches in this process. Now, equally important to all of this, as I've shared, is the compliance or the adherence to policy, procedure. I would include in there evidence-based practices and the core principles of effective investigative interviewing. This can include providing appropriate advisements or meeting legal requirements. It could also be following organizational or agency policies or even those SOPs. Avoiding any sort of contamination, like relaying specific details of the incident or revealing evidence or even asking leading questions. The last piece here I would throw in would be also effectively managing the interviewer's behavioral and emotional responses. A great example of this might be not responding with any sort of anger, impatience, or irritation, even in those moments when provoked. Now, as the world continues to turn or evolve, I should say, so do evidence-based principles. I might ask how current is not only the interviewer's training, but also the auditor or the evaluator's training. A professional interviewer having a drive to continuously improve knowledge, skill, and even ability is most definitely an important trait to have. Now, here I want to emphasize that these focus areas are really goal directed, they're not coercive, and they're non judgmental. And the focus again is to move from that or move to that perspective or approach and away from focusing on only securing a desired outcome. Trust but verify, I think, is a phraseology that many of us are familiar with. And really, the goal ultimately here is that by valuing the process and keeping a critical eye on how the interview is approached ultimately, the integrity of the investigation and the trust the interviewer builds or is carried out through this process is preserved ultimately. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't take some time today to recognize the upcoming Veterans Day holiday. And I do want to take a moment to recognize the sacrifices made by our veterans and also their families. This upcoming Veterans Day holiday serves, I think, as a powerful reminder of the dedication, courage, and commitment of those who have served in our armed forces. I think we owe them our gratitude for the freedoms and all that we are able to enjoy. And I think that they set a great example, not only in service, but in resilience as well. So please, I'd ask if you join me in honoring our veterans upcoming here and reflecting on their invaluable contributions to our country on this Veterans Day and even every day. Enjoy your Friday, everyone. Be safe out there. Take care. Oh, hey, Mike. Yes. Hey, John.